How to build a successful life coaching business. Overcome these 5 common challenges. Every coach faces challenges, but today we're going to tackle them head on. Stick with me to the end as we talk through these 5 common challenges and how you can overcome them. Challenge number 1. The Impostor Syndrome. This has to do with self-doubt, and it's really common. In fact, it's almost universal. It's that feeling that somehow I'm out of my league. I'm not really qualified to be here. The reason this is so common is because our psychology is trying to understand a new experience. And this is unprecedented for you. That's why it feels uncomfortable. It feels a little out of place. Notice what your brain is doing. Anytime you try something new, it's not going to seem right at first. It's like when you put on a pair of sunglasses or maybe a pair of glasses that are tinted a particular color. As you look around, the world doesn't look right to you at first. But after your brain gets used to it, it looks perfectly normal to you. That's part of what's going on here. One of the things that I teach the coaches that I train and mentor is that coaches need coaches. Why? Because it's too hard to read the label on the bottle that we're in. If you like that analogy, just picture that the instructions for getting out of your bottle are printed on the label of your bottle. We all need someone to read that to us, and that's why coaching is so valuable. For you to become a coach means that you believe in coaching, so make sure that you've got a coach. That's one of the most powerful things that you can do to reframe your experience in a way that allows you to take it less personally and see that you're not a special case after all. My invitation to you to handle this particular challenge is to own your credential. This is where I get some pushback, especially from coaches who are not yet certified or trained in any specific modality. What is my credential? Your life and your experience is your credential. Whatever you add to that through training or certification, you can also own. I provide a certification as a positivity practitioner, and I remember one of our practitioners recently was struggling with calling herself a certified positivity practitioner. She had already been through my course and my certification, but she didn't feel any different than she did before she went through the training. Sure, she knows a lot more than she did then, but she still knew it, the practice. And this was the conversation that we had. Own your credential. At what point do you decide, yes, I am qualified to do this? I remember a time way back in kindergarten. I was probably 5, 6 years old at the time, and I'm sitting in the sandbox, just playing in the sand with a couple of the other kids, and this girl rides by on a 10-speed. Now, that's a big deal for a kindergartner. I was just barely learning how to get to the training wheels. And this girl rides by on a bike. And Kayleen, who's next to me in the sandbox, I still remember it was Kayleen. I had a little crush on her back then. And she nudges me and she says, "That's my sister. She's 10. And I'm like, oh, I'm not worthy, right? Little 5-year-old in the sandbox. Here's a 5th grader on a 10-speed, and I am in awe, right? Think about that for a minute. I had one of our coaches in a training that mentioned, yeah, to a 3rd grader, a 6th grader is an expert. So take that to heart somewhere. You're already farther along than some, and behind others. That's all part of the model. Own your credential. If you're a 3rd grader, go find some kindergartners to teach. If you're a 6th grader, you might want to look for some 3rd graders, right? You're already qualified to serve the people that you're already qualified to serve. The second challenge that every coach that I've worked with faces is the business model. And I think this is because people who are inclined or feel called to help others in meaningful ways are not necessarily inclined to think like a business owner. Entrepreneurship is not for the weak at heart. but it's also something that we don't have to fear too much. One of my coaches, Jody Moore, helped me to understand a very simple business model that has transformed my career. So here's your business model in a bucket, or 3 buckets actually. Picture 3 buckets. And in the first bucket are all of the people who know you exist. These are people who are aware that you are on the planet and maybe know a little bit about what you do. That's bucket number 1. Bucket number 2 are the people who know you, like you, and trust you. That's a smaller number, by the way. These are the people who have already become familiar with what it is that you do, and they can see some relevance to their own life. So they're your subscribers, your followers, the people who want a little more of whatever it is that you're doing. That's bucket number 2. Bucket number 3 are the people who are paying the bills. These are people who exchange money in order to get the service that you're offering them. So they're your clients and your customers. That's an even smaller number than you have in bucket 2. You can face the business model challenge by understanding your 3 buckets. And there are specific activities that you can do in each of those buckets and in order to move people from one bucket to the next. If you're finding these tips useful so far, would you just take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell while you're at it? There's more where this came from. Here's the 3rd challenge that I see a lot of coaches facing: getting into the pool. Now, what I mean by this is the stories or narratives that our clients have are the pool. When you get into the pool with them, it's hard to help them out of the pool. We often buy into the stories that our clients have. Here's a basic tenet of coaching: circumstances are neutral. Our stories about them are not. And the stories that our clients have are sometimes very compelling. I remember when I had my psychotherapy practice. This was the first part of my career. About the first 15 years of my career, I practiced traditional psychotherapy. And the way a session would typically roll is that my client would come in and launch into their story. And there was a strong pull for me to join them in the pool, to get into their story in a way that I'm like, oh yeah, that really is terrible. No, it's not. It's neutral. And when I say circumstances are neutral, I don't mean that they're easy or painless. Sometimes they're very painful and difficult. But getting in the pool with our clients doesn't help us to maintain a perspective that can be helpful to them as they rethink or create new stories about their circumstances. Getting into the pool. It's a skill that you can learn to stay out of the pool. Challenge number 4 is self-care. Do you remember when I said coaches need coaches? This is part of your self-care, and I believe that this is true of coaches just like it is for parents. Self-care is not a luxury. It's a necessary ingredient. You know when you're getting on an airplane and they go through the safety routine and the part about those oxygen masks that fall down from the ceiling, you're supposed to put that on your face. And they always remind us to put our own mask on first. If there's someone that we need to assist, that's especially important because if we're out cold in the aisle, we're just in the way. We're part of the problem now. Coaches need coaches. Coaches, like parents, need to have really great self-care skills and practices that allow them to be in a position to really serve their clients well. The last challenge that I'm going to mention today is finding clients. I don't mention this last because it's the least important. In fact, this is probably the one that becomes the biggest challenges for most coaches. Once they've got a little training or a certification, then the question is, okay, who am I going to coach? We already talked about the business model, the 3 buckets. The short version for overcoming this challenge is to get really good at filling your 3 buckets and moving people from one bucket to the next. Because who's going to hire you to coach them? Well, the people who know you, like you, and trust you. That's bucket 2. Well, where are they going to come from? They first have to know that you even exist. That's bucket one. Bucket one is all about marketing and being very clear about who you want to serve or who you are uniquely designed to serve will help you to be more clear about your marketing messages to get more people into bucket one. Then you'll give them a compelling reason to subscribe or come into your tribe. That's bucket two. You'll serve them a little for free on a regular basis. That's called nurturing. And then when you make an offer for your services, a few of them are going to come in and actually pay you money to do what you do for them. Did this resonate with you? There are some clear steps that you can take to empower yourself as an influential coach. Go to this video next where you can learn more about how to become a certified life coach the positivity practitioner way. I have a little bias there because that positivity practitioner element is the part that I uniquely bring to the table. Go watch that video next and we'll empower you to take those next steps in your career.